Welcome to the Chicago Bears Podcast, a presentation of ESPN Chicago, Chicago's home for sports. Here's your host, Pat, the designer.
Bear down, Bears fans. Welcome into another edition of the Chicago Bears Podcast. Pat, the designer, Jason McKie, live at training camp. Little bit of a rougher day today for the Bears offense, but the defense came to play. J-Mac, how you feeling about what we saw today?
At the end of the day, I mean, the defense got the better of the offense today, but Bears win. In a nutshell, Bears win. I mean, you're going to make each other better. You're going to have days where the defense performs at a higher level than the offense, and we saw that today. The defense made a lot of plays, a lot of interceptions.
Yes.
On the offensive side of things, a lot of mis-executing plays, a lot of tip passes that were turning interceptions. So offensively, this is a day that you go back, you get in your meeting rooms, you analyze the film, you say, where are the coaching corrections and where are the corrections that need to be made. We got to go through and see how we can get better. And it's good that the offense has faced this type of adversity early, because we want to get all the kinks and make all the mistakes in training camp. And the less and less mistakes we make as we get, throughout preseason, as we hit that season opener, the better we'll be as an offense.
No, 100%. And the one thing that I thought was interesting that we heard from Luke, when we heard Luke Getsy, Justin Fields, and Darnell Mooney, was the team didn't come out with good energy. They didn't come out with the right vibes. What does that mean, right? Because as the fan hearing that, it's like, oh, y'all weren't prepared for work that day. And that's not really what it's saying. What does that mean when they're saying, they didn't come out with the right energy that day?
Yeah, it's just like I said before, it's matching the intensity. You heard the defense, they made a play. Everybody on that defensive sideline, they're jumping up and down. They're celebrating with their teammate who just made a play. Offensively, I think Justin Fields touched on in his press conference. He said, hey, you know what? There was a big block. I think Claypool made a big block on a linebacker, but there was no emotion from the offensive sideline. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. Like, you want to show energy when your teammate makes a play. You got to match the intensity of the other sideline, whether it be your defense, whether it be the opposing team's sideline. You want to match that intensity. And it's good that, practice was real competitive today. We saw, guys really hitting, guys coming out there with extra emotion. We seen tempers flare. It was, who was it? It was Velus Jones.
Velus Jones, yeah. By the way, Twitter's going wild with that tweet, dog. Like, Velus, they think that Velus is like, he's out here. He's a hitman on the other side. He's fine.
Yeah,
he went out and played the very next play.
That's what you
and
call.
Jalen Johnson answered.
It's what you call a misunderstanding. But no, it's like that just showed a kerfuffle. That just shows that it's intense, and that's what you want when you have guys giving it their all in practice. That's going to make you better. You know what I mean? You got to raise the level of competition, so that way when it's time for these live pads start flying for real, it's not a shock to you. Your body's used to the competitive nature that you're going to face here week in and week out every Sunday. So it's good to see guys turn up the intensity. We see Coach Flus really lengthen practice as well. Practice have usually been about an hour and a half, and today was about 2.5 hours, and that's real training camp. You know what I mean? Going out like that's real training camp. Pat. Let's be realistic.
Hold on. Time, ladies and gentlemen, time for Old Man McKee's rant of the
not
day.
old man.
What was your issue with what we've seen most of the week?
Well, I was just saying, before you get an hour and a half practice, I'm looking at it from a coach's standpoint. Right. I want to see, are you able to get everything you need to get in? You know what I mean? All the phases you need to work, special teams. Are you getting your indie period in? Are you getting your 7-on-7 period in? Are you getting your inside run period? Are you getting your team period? Are you working situations? Like, these are all things that you have to work on in practice, because you have to make sure your team's prepared to encounter any situation that you're going to encounter during the season. And I just felt like, the early onset of training camp, I felt like an hour and a half. It seemed like it was cut short. It seemed like things were rushed. And you see, Coach Flus he stuck to what he said yesterday. He said that, practice is going to be longer. He said the ones are going to get more time. Now he's starting to prepare his guys to make sure they're ready, because, hey, time's a ticking. They're going to be, kicking this thing off next week against the Titans down at Soldier Field. So he's got to make sure that they're prepared. So I was glad to see the length of practice, be longer. Guys got more reps. And you see how we responded. I mean, I don't know if the guys were tired. It was hot out there. Practice was longer. But at the end of the day, you're going to play a long physical game.
So it's a 3.5 hour game.
Right. And offensively, when you're in training camp and, you're going through an offensive install, there's a lot of things going at you. each and every day, the install is long. You're going over protections, shifts, motions, personnel groupings, and things of that nature. So there's a lot on a player's plate, especially a young player.
Yeah.
It's like a whirlwind. You're just worried about making sure you're lined up in the right spot. Then coach tags a motion with it. Then you got to worry about the route concept if you're a receiver. If you're offensive lineman, you got to worry about who do I have in protection. If I'm a back, what's my aiming point when this run's called? What is my read? So there's a lot of moving parts that goes along with this thing in terms of scheme. And yes, we talk about it all the time. A lot of these guys, it's their second year in the offense, but there's a lot of rookies. There's a lot of first-year guys. Their first time in this offense. They're learning at the same time. So it's a lot of moving parts, but at the same time, you can't coach energy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you have to come out there with energy. And, the great coaches, I took this from a coach, and he would always say, hey, if you're juiceless, you're useless. So you got to come out there with some juice, some grit. And if the defense makes a play, well, then offensively, we got to have the juice and energy. We got to come back and match that play.
Yeah.
And I think, during my time here, we had guys that would talk a lot. Mike Brown, I can hear his voice in my head now, on the defensive side of the ball, yelling and talking crap. Peanut was out there talking. Briggs and Urlacher was out there talking. Alex Brown was talking. Couldn't understand what he was saying at the time, but he was talking. He was talking, you know what I mean? And then offensively, our guys were talking. Olin Kreutz was out there talking. Ruben Brown was talking.
Yeah.
Myself and Thomas Jones was talking. Moose was talking. And it made it fun. You know what I mean? It made it fun. And yes, we know it's training camp. You're going over the same, you're practicing and stuff like that. And there'd be maybe some days you don't want to practice. But when it's competitive like that, you get those competitive juices flowing. You're going to get, a better practice. You're going to help prepare yourself better because now we're both competing at a high level. It means something.
Yeah, and it was interesting today because, we saw the defense come with that intensity. And very much like you pointed out, right? Like we didn't see that energy matched by the offense. And it just showed today they couldn't get anything going their way. Couple of bad interceptions by Justin Fields, couple of interceptions that were caused by receivers, right? One where PJ tried to get the football out there and it bounced off of Brown's chest. Ball goes in the air, Pitt going the other way, Brian goes the other way, right? Justin Fields had the same thing with Tunyon. I believe Brisker came down with that one again, and it just continued to be that kind of vibe all until they got into the 2-minute drill where you started to see the offense fight back a little bit more. You started to see a little bit of energy. Travis Homer put a move on Kyler Gordon that had him skating into the other side. Yeah, it was a nasty move that he put on him. And then all of a sudden you saw the offense kind of get some energy. And, hey, they killing you out there, So, and it's one of those things that we saw today where it really felt like the defense just had the offense's number. But to add some context to it, because there's a lot of people that probably aren't going to go into this part of it, it's just going to be the offense played bad. The offense didn't do what they were supposed to be doing. Luke Getsy talked in the post-game presser or post-practice presser and said we were throwing a lot of new stuff at the offense. We were throwing 100%. A lot of new protections at the offensive line. We were putting a lot on these guys' shoulders because for most of these guys, this is the second year in this system. They're giving them more. This is not just where, we're going to give you a little bit of milk for the baby. There you go. You're good. No, they getting full on steak now in practice out here. And I think it's hard for a Bears fan to see what we saw today on the offensive side as a positive. But it is because it tells you that your offense is to a point where now we can give you more and you have to work through those growing pains.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, when you look at this thing, right, training camp, so the offense, they're going to run what they're installing, and the defense is going to run what they're installing. So what does that mean? We're not scheming our offense against our defense, and our defense is not scheming our offense. They're running what they're installing on a day-to-day basis. So, we saw a lot of Kyler Gordon blitzing today, a lot of nickel blitz as well. Our offense, we have answers for that, but what we're installing today, the protection is not the answer for what we're seeing. So we're not scheming our defense. We're going to run what we've installed, and we're going to, that's what we're going out there and doing on a day-to-day basis. So, at the same time, I look at it like this. When you're not performing well offensively, when you have a lack of focus, dropping footballs, that's just a lack of focus. That's a basic fundamental, you know what I mean? And, like you mentioned, Justin had a couple of picks that was on him. He mentioned that was on me. A couple tip passes is on the receiver. You know what I mean? With all that adversity that you're facing, when things are going your way, which is going to come up throughout the season, who's that guy on the offense that can say, hey, you know what? Let's huddle together. Let's get this stuff together. This ain't us. Like, who's that guy that demands that attention that demands that respect and say, all right, let's turn this thing around and get the offense back on track when things are going your way. And that's a great opportunity today. This is a great opportunity for them to find who that is or who is that guy. Like, Justin Fields said in this post practice press conference that he brought everybody together and said, we got to have more juice. This isn't us. Like, are you going to be that guy, Justin? You know what I mean? Or is there several guys? You heard Darnell Mooney say in this press conference, Chase Claypool is that guy that's talking, drawing back and forth with the defense, but it's got to be more than one guy. You know what I'm saying? So who are the leaders offensively that's going to take command of the offense when things are going your way?
And it's weird because, like, when they talked about Chase, right, he was like, Chase don't really know when to stop. So we kind of got
I like it.
But that's what I love about it, right? Like
that.
He's got the emotion. That's the emotion that we want to see.
It means something to him.
Yeah.
It means something to him. The passion. You never want to take away a player's passion, his drive. You know what I mean? His inner drive, and that just shows that it means something to him. Yeah, it's a big year for him, but at the same time, when Chase sees this defense making play after play, when he sees balls being tipped, when he sees interceptions being thrown, this ain't us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I need to do something like emotionally to upstart this offense, to inject some life into this offense. And I like that. And if it has to be like Mooney said, if he has to be the one to pull Chase back because he's so emotional, he's so emotionally invested in what he's doing, he's so emotionally invested in this offense, that's fine. Will you be the pullback guy? But at least we know Chase is one of those guys who we can go to, who we can look to when things aren't going away, who can be that emotional leader and get us back on track.
No, 100%. And for me, that's the part. And like I said, when I came out, and J-Mac can tell you, when I came out of practice, I was like, they looked awful. Mm-hmm. Like, it's one of the worst days I've seen offensively. It's the only day that I've seen this bad from Justin Fields. Even, I heard Herb Howard talking about, Monday was something similar to this. Mm-hmm. And it seems like, they're going through and they're instilling, new things. But when you get that context on it, it's like, okay, well, it's a whole new protection scheme. Mm-hmm. You're not sitting here with the things that you're already comfortable with. We're going deeper into the playbook. You're going to see days like this. And I think that's the part that I want Bears fans to really keep in mind when, we see the Twitter, we see all of it, right? Where you're losing your mind. Oh my God, this is now he's inaccurate and all the thing, all the positivity that the Bears have built up is gone. This is how you get better. You have 100%. To go through these struggles. You have to go through the misses. You have to go through the points where you're sitting in the locker room after the game with your coaches. I mean, we saw Chris Morgan twice go to the offensive line, pull him aside, and it wasn't fiery, but it was definitely hey, boys, we got to get this together, right? Like we stood on the sideline and we're like, sack.
Yeah, but that's what you're going to see, in game. You're going to see when the offense comes off to the sideline, they're going to break up and go to their position coaches, and they're going to talk about the drive. Justin's going to go to the quarterback coach. He's going to look. He's going to, he's going to get the pictures of that drive and see what they need to work on, see what they hit. He'll communicate with Getsy if he's upstairs, or they'll communicate and see what they need to work on. The receivers will get with the receiver coach. The O-line will be with Coach Morgan, breaking down, what they saw on that drive. And the thing about it is, offensively, when you're going to have drives that don't go your way. Yeah. You're going to have drives that you go 3 and out on. But at the same time, the maturity level and taking the next step is about response. How do you respond when things don't go your way? How do you respond when you go 3 and out? What are you going to do on the next drive? What can we do? What kind of adjustments can we make in game to help get us back on track and to be successful? And that's what I'm glad we have days like this, because you need days like this in order for you to progress.
I'll tell you one thing that does concern me, though, in the progression, and it's Braxton Jones at left tackle. Like, I get we're installing new things, but to me, Braxton Jones is getting beat by the same things that we saw him getting beat by last season. And it's just, it continues to be bull rush. He talked yesterday at the podium about, having to have your hands in the right place, and his hands are still too wide, and out the pads on, his hands are still too wide. And that, to me, I came into the draft last year and I love Darnell Wright. I think that Darnell Wright is going to be, I mean, by the way, if you guys see this guy, like, he's when Louis Riddick said all pro Darnell Wright, you don't want to project that far yet, but you can see that this guy is something special. He's going to be there for a while. Yeah. But on the left side, I have serious concerns, and I've been concerned kind of throughout training camp, but it hasn't been to the point where it's like, okay, that's a problem. Today, it just looked like Braxton Jones was consistently getting beat on that left side. DeMarcus Walker wasn't even out here today.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and as a pro, you're gonna have dog days like this, right? Where you're gonna go out there, you're not gonna play well, you're gonna get beat, you're not gonna win every rep.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's an opportunity for you to grow and learn. And Braxton talked about it yesterday at his press conference. He said, you know what, on the bull rush, my hands are too wide. I've got to get my hands in closer, right? I've got to be able to absorb force, right? Offensive lineman against a bull rush is about absorbing force. You know what I mean? So I've got to do better anchoring down on that bull rush. So he knows what he has to correct.
Yeah.
Now the thing is, how do you go about correcting it?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's what I was going. How hard is that, right? When I know what I got to do, I know what I'm doing wrong. I can physically see it on tape.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a mental thing? Like I have to literally break what my mind wants to do and reteach myself?
Yeah, you just continue working on the fundamentals, right? Fundamentals is something that you work on every single day, the basic fundamentals. And yeah, these guys are the best of the best, but football is blocking, catching, and tackling. Basic fundamentals, right? Those are going to be part of your EDDs, everyday drills, in which you're going to work on those things every single day.
Yeah.
You know, we talk about, you see all the receivers and running backs and quarterbacks, they're working on ball security drills. You see the offensive lineman working on pass sets, working on their hand placement. That's something that you're going to work on every single day. So that's something that Braxton knows. He knows, you know, where his weaknesses are.
Yeah.
So he knows, hey, I've got to turn that into strength. How do I do that? Well, I'm at the staff to practice. You know, I'm at to work with Coach Morgan. I've got to work on hand placement. That's a part of being a pro.
Yeah.
Continuing to try to be the best at your craft. You know what I mean? So, you know, he knows that's something that he's got to correct. He knows he had an issue with that last year. There's something that he's been working, you know, in terms of trying to correct throughout the early onset of training camp. So, you know, I think Braxton will get better. I think he'll get better. The more reps he gets, the better he'll be. But that's something that he knows that he has to correct as an individual, and that's going to make our offense better, knowing that, hey, Braxton Jones on that left side can withstand a bull rush. Because once a team sees when they're scouting you offensively, and they see that you're a tackle that, you know, you can't pass that or block that bull rush, guess what's going to happen? They're going to keep doing it over and over and over again. You know what I mean? When that defensive coordinator sees that we have running backs that can't pass protect, well, guess what they're going to do?
Yeah.
They're going to keep bringing them linebackers over and over again. You know what I mean? So, you know, I'm confident, you know, this Getsy knows where this offense's weaknesses are. And, you know, they'll go out there and they'll continue to work on these things and try to make them strengths. And that's what training camp's for, right? It's for you to practice, for you to get better. You know, it's for you to make each other better. So I'm glad that, you know, we see those D linemen, those young guys we've seen out there. You see Dominique Robinson out there. You see Gibson out there. They're giving Braxton bull rushes because they know he can't handle it.
Yeah.
So now he's getting, you know, more and more practice against a bull rush. So let's hope he can get that hand placement corrected and get better. So that way, you know, Justin Fields' blind side is protected.
Yeah, he's getting plenty of opportunity. They're not withholding anything from him. I mean, they're going right at him. And like you said, right, like they're not scheming for what the defense is attacking with yet. So when you see the one-on-ones, the one thing that I will give Braxton Jones is when we saw it in the 2-minute drill, me and you were down on the other end, right? And I said he did a good job. He got beat by the bull rush, but he did a good job recovering his base and being able to hold himself up, right? Like like you said, there's gonna be times where you get beat. The one thing that Teven Jenkins credited Darnell Wright with the other day was he said, "I've never seen anybody who can recover after getting beat like he has." Sometimes that really is just it. Sometimes there are things that aren't going to be your strength, and it's about how you can recover, how you can counter off of that. We both talked about, right, the Earl Spence Bud Crawford fight, right, where you know it was the counter, it wasn't the attack, it was the counter that really was the difference there. And so sometimes in football, you know, that's where I think we need to see him improve the most, especially early on, because football season ain't far away. Like the season is here.
Right around the corner. It's like you said, just understanding, you know, what you need to work on as an individual, understanding what you need to work on as an offense, and understanding how do we adjust. Football is about adjustments. No matter how much film you may watch on your opponent, come game day, there's going to be something that you have not gone over. They're going to give you a look that you haven't seen because they know you're watching their tape.
Right.
So they got to give you something different, right? But you've got to stick to your rules, right? You got to stick to, you know, you got to stick to your rules. You got to stick to your fundamentals to overcome what they're throwing at you. And the team that can make the most adjustments, the team that can execute at a higher level, will be the team that will give themselves an opportunity to win a game. But you can't do things like we saw today from the offense, beat yourselves. Tip passes, interceptions, overthrows, interceptions.
You could tell they got down on
Yeah,
themselves, and they weren't executing as strong.
Right. And Gessie talked about it too. Gessie said, I got emotional as well because
we heard it.
Right. He said he got emotional as well because the body language, right? You make a bad play, the offense is walking back to the huddle. No, that's not no, we need to be running back to the huddle. That's the standard. We're running to the huddle. We're getting the play called. We're running to the line of scrimmage, and now we're going to execute this play. We had a bad play. We're going to forget about it. We're going to execute this next play.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We had a bad drive, the previous drive. Now we're going to go out, and we're going to go on, a 10-play drive. That's the mindset that you got to have if you want to be successful in this game. You got to have a short memory, but you got to be, that adrenaline has to be pumping to where, I make a bad play. I got to make 2 good plays. You know what I'm saying?
We're now to the point where we're through 2 padded practices. We haven't seen Nate Davis. We lose Teven Jenkins today. That's a little bit of an update. I don't know what they're not telling us anything.
Yeah, we don't know.
That, but literally, they don't have to tell us anything, so they're not gonna. And I get that, right? You don't want to, turn something into something that it's not. But sometimes you do that by not saying anything.
Yeah.
So I mean, where's your concern level right now with the fact that we haven't seen Teven? I don't know. He jogged off. He looked okay to be jogging off. We haven't seen Nate Davis.
Yeah, we haven't seen him.
I'm a little concerned by that at this point because he is one of our big signings in the offseason that's supposed to bolster this offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, am I concerned? I'm concerned because he's missing time. He's missing time having that cohesiveness with this offensive line.
Yeah.
We saw that last year when you have, when you're shuffling guys in and out, the cohesiveness isn't there, and you're not going to get a good product.
OTAs too.
And he wasn't there in the OTAs, so he's losing time building chemistry with his O-line. But I'm not real concerned. He may be a little banged up, which is going to happen. I think obviously he'll be back. You look at Teven. You talked about Teven. He probably just got nicked up. We haven't seen Rashawn Johnson in either, a guy who everybody wanted to see. I was excited to see him in pads because as a running back, your biggest opportunity to show what you can do is in pads. Now we have guys, thudding. Thud is where you're hitting, you're live blocking up top. Defenders are allowed to come and hit you, but there's no tackling to the ground. So that's a thud tempo, the tempo that they're implementing here at training camp. But for a back, a young back especially, we need to see Rashawn Johnson in pass protection. We need to see him run in between the tackles. We need to see him run that outside zone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So for him losing time, especially with a guy who you were hoping to come and compete with, Deontay Foreman and Khalil Herbert, he's missing a lot of time. So, I don't think it's a major injury. He's been out there. He just hasn't had shoulder pads. He's getting what you call mental reps right now.
We saw him ahead of it. He was catching passes out there.
Yeah.
So it's probably just something, lower body hockey injury, right?
Yeah.
Where something got a little tweaked or something like that, and the coaches are like, no, we're not putting you out there.
I mean, it's one thing he's out there getting mental reps because he's out there.
Yeah,
he's seeing the play, he's hearing the play call. He should be going through in his mind, okay, what am I supposed to do on this play? That's called a mental rep, but at the same time, it's nothing like getting that live rep, especially for a rookie, and that's what he's missing out on.
Yeah, no, 100%. It feels like on the offensive side, it's going to come along. And I'll tell you the one reason why, Justin Fields, I thought he was going to come into the press conference, end of game, we just lost the game mentality out there, right? We saw him last year where it's kind of like, we got to get better at that. He came in, it's one of the best post anything interviews we've ever seen from Justin Fields. Felt like he showed emotion, felt like he was showing confidence. You could tell he probably went in there with his team, and we did hear about that he went in there and talked to the team after and told them to bring the energy up. And Justin Fields came into that press conference, and you could feel the confidence in him exuding off of him. And that was not what I expected to see after a rough day. I mean, he 3 picks for him, 1 for PJ Walker. So I was surprised by that.
And you look at it like this, right? At the end of the day, you don't want to peak right now. You don't want to peak. You don't want your team to peak in training camp. We don't want to play our best ball in training camp. You know what I mean? When we kick off against Green Bay, the home opener down at Soldier Field, we need to be playing our best football at that time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's when you really need to start playing your best ball. And even then, it's like, hey, you know what? If you want to play your best ball early on in the season, but you want to be able to play your best ball as it gets toward later in the season too, because that means, hey, you know what? We're making a playoff push. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to peak too early.
With 3 preseason games, that first game is just like, all right, y'all, let's go out here and play for real.
Yeah.
Like, this is the first time that we kind of getting, because what are you got to get maybe a quarter in the first game, a half in the second. You don't play it all in the third.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like Coach Flus talked about that yesterday. He was saying that, you know, they're still discussing in terms playing times in terms of starters and how they're going to break this thing up in preseason. So he said it will look a little different because they do have a lot of new people, a lot of new faces. So, you know, I can anticipate seeing the starters getting maybe a little bit more time just because you have a lot of new guys involved. But at the same time, like Justin, I'm glad he came in to the press conference upbeat, like it wasn't the end of the world. He didn't come in defeated. You know, he knows, you know, the mistakes that they made. He knows he'll go back to the drawing board as an offense. He knows Coach Gessie will address this offense and say, you know what, this is what we got to do better, right? But the one thing we talked about it, the one thing you can't coach is energy.
Yeah, they had to come with it and talk to this too, because I've already seen this out there that, you know, all of a sudden the Bears were struggling against the second team. The Bears were the first team offense struggled against the second team defense, and you said something while we were on the field that really changed it in my mind, because I was saying the same thing. I was like, man, they like, why are all of a sudden they going against just the second team? You basically said that's normal. That's how we practice.
Yeah, and it's just a way that they, you know, they tailor practice. So normally the first offense will go against the second defense, which the second defense is, in other words, the scout team, and vice versa. The first defense will go against the second offense, which is the second offense is now the scout team. And there are situations in practice to where, you know, they'll have situations to where the coach will say, you know what, we got goal line today. It's going to be ones versus ones, and the tempo is going to be live.
Yeah.
So when he says the tempo is going to be live, that means they're tackling to the ground. Or you may say, you know what, our first team period will be red zone. We're going to go ones versus ones, and the tempo is thud. Thud means we're going to, you know, live blocking up top. You're able to hit the running backs, but everybody's staying off the ground. You know what I'm saying? So there's situations, especially in camp, to where, you know, coach will go ones versus ones because he wants to see a different tempo. But for the most part, especially during the season, when you do team, you're going against, you know, the backup defense, and you're going against the defense. The number one defense is going against the backup offense.
I think we got a little bit of it because of when the fans are here, they want to show the fans something.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it felt like. Like yesterday, it was like, oh, all of a sudden they're going against the twos today. And I was like, once you said that, it really opened my mind to that. I mean, we've talked a lot about the offense and the struggles that they have. Let's talk about this defense.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. I was excited today. This defense was flying around.
Yeah.
And when they talk about Tremaine Edmunds, Justin Fields talked about him, and he said, I threw a pass that versus any other linebacker in the NFL is completed.
Yeah.
Against Tremaine Edmunds, it's not, because of how much size he takes up. What'd you see from the defense today that you liked?
Yeah, we saw energy. You know, that's what we saw.
We saw energy.
We saw energy from the defense.
Talking.
And this is the thing, right? And this is the thing. It makes you think, right? When you come to Chicago as a defensive player, like, you should have energy anyway, because this is an organization known for defense, right? You got so many great players that have played in this defense, so many great players that are Hall of Famers that play in this defense. So if I'm a defensive player, I'm trying to come here and make my mark. This is a city known for defense. So that's what we saw. We saw defense flying around. We saw defense jawing back and forth with the offense. We saw defense getting takeaways. You know what I mean? We saw defense playing with emotion, but also playing with efficiency. You know, they were on the same page all day. They challenged the receivers. That defensive line was humming. You talked about Braxton Jones. They were bullying our offensive line a little bit. And you go back to Tremaine Edmunds. I mean, when you have a guy of his stature in the middle, and I play with a guy who's similar stature in Brian Urlacher, when you have a guy that has that stature in terms of his height, his length, and stuff like that, and his athleticism, it's real difficult because he's really a factor in the middle of the field. He's like a big spider in the middle of the field. You know what I mean? You may think you have a window here, and his arm, you know, he's athletic enough, but his arm, he's got a big wingspan. He's batting that ball down. So to what Justin was saying in his press conference, it's good that he's getting a look against one of the top middle linebackers in the game, because on game day, you know, those windows will be a little bit wider just because they're not going to have the linebackers. You know, we're not going to every week. We're not going to play the type of caliber of linebacker that Tremaine Edmunds is.
And even the fact that, right, he has the understanding of, like you said, you're not playing that caliber, but he came in with the understanding of, like, if I throw that ball against anybody else, it's good. Like, that's
100%.
Like,
100%.
so it feels like we have enough players here that now we're to the point where they're like, okay, this is what I'm actually here to do. I'm not here
Yeah.
to sit here and simply complete passes. I'm not here. The one thing, right, we both talked about Tyler Scott's maturity. The one thing here about Tyler Scotty, I'm not here to catch passes. I'm here to make sure that I'm in the right spots, that I know what position I'm in. And at the end of the day, if I catch the pass, perfect. But how I'm grading myself is, am I in the right spots on whatever the play call is? And that was something that last season when we looked at a guy like Bud Jones, Bud Jones. We'll call him that. He throwing them things. You know what I mean? Bayless Bud Jones.
Bayless
Crawford Jones.
Yeah, but I like it though. Like at the same time, right? Yeah, you know, you're brothers, right? So at the end of the day, you're gonna get in misunderstandings, like I called it. You're gonna get in little spats and stuff like that. But it's good because now I know we're practicing at a high level. We're competing. We're flying around. It means something. You push me after play, I'm gonna push you back. We're getting each other's faces. You know what I mean? Like,
and it was off of a good play.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It was off of a nice Jaquan Brisker coming through, break up, looked him in the face, and was like, "You not now." And here's the funny part about it, right? This is the best part about the whole thing. Jaquan got up hype, but he got up because when Bayless ran into him, Jaquan hit the ground.
Yeah.
Bayless a big boy.
Bayless is a big dude, man. He's put together. He's been having a great training camp. Like you talk about the offense, and I like the versatility that Getsy's been implementing in his offense. You see a lot of motion shifts, personnel groupings. We saw Bayless Jones in the backfield today, running a little outside zone as well, just because Bayless has that skill set. So, it's one thing. Are you going to label him as a receiver, or is he an offensive weapon? Because he can do so many things. You know what I mean? So I look forward to seeing, Bayless and more and other things besides just lining up a wide receiver. I expect to see him lining up in the backfield. I expect to see him, getting reverses. I expect to see him getting quick now screens and stuff like that. So I'm excited. I'm glad he's having a good camp. A lot of things were in question last year, but I think he's starting to come into his own about, what he means to this team and what he means to this offense.
When you look at the defense today, right, how they were flying around versus guys like Bayless, I mean, they did a good job, right? It felt like me and you on the sideline, sack. It felt like the pressure was there. Does that give you a little more confidence heading into the season? Even with the Bears adding, another interior pass rusher, Bears seem to really be focused on the interior. They really seem to be focused on getting the middle of this line right and not as worried about the edge rusher, even though we keep saying we need an edge rusher to make this defense competent. Do you feel, right, like coming off of today's practice, that this defense is further along than we thought it was going to be at this point?
Yeah, I think so. A lot of key pieces on defense as well. So I'm just happy at the fact that this defense is really flying around. Like, you saw the his principle in full effect today. I mean, and a guy I'll single out, I thought had a great practice was Noah Sewell. And you look at, I mean, he blew up Travis Homer over the middle on the check down. He also Travis Homer was on an outside zone. You see Noah Sewell just come. And I'm right there on the sideline, flash across my face, and just, knock Travis Homer out of bounds. And I'm looking like, yeah, that's why I'm retired, because I don't want no more. I don't want no more of that. I don't want no parts of that. But it's good to see a young guy, a young rookie, right, on this defense, taking advantage of an opportunity, right? We know Jack Sanborn isn't in there, and he's getting those reps, and now he's taking advantage of it. He's trying to let his presence be known. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I like to see. Guys out there making plays. We see Terrell Smith out there making plays. Him and Tyreek Stevenson.
Tyreek Stevenson did a good job today as well.
They're in a battle. They're in a battle. And this game is about competition. And if you like Coach like Ryan Poles and Getsy talked about it before training camp, if you're not an elite competitor, or if you don't want to compete at an elite level, you can't play this game. And if you aren't an elite competitor, you won't be in this building when the season kicks off. This is the best of the best. So you got to go out there and compete every day. And I think that goes back to what Justin was saying. Like, we got to have energy. There's going to be days you don't want to practice. There's going to be days where, like, man, I don't feel like practicing today, but it's your job. And it's your job to bring energy. And it's your job to know your assignment. It's your job to know your alignment. It's your job to execute. And it's your job, not the coach's job, to bring energy each and every day you set foot on that practice field.
How would you evaluate what we've seen from the coaching staff thus far? I think that a lot of the plays that they've put together, I mean, of course, right, screen passes, little stuff like that, like Luke Getsy's throwing in there, but like even some of the deep routes, some of the deep balls, right, when you look at what they're doing underneath to make that maybe a little bit of a decoy or a second option for Justin, then you see somebody leak out over the top. I really like how some of these plays have been designed on the offensive side and on the defensive side. it feels like Allen Williams just needed talent. Like I was concerned coming into this season on like, hey man, like I know we was bad, but we looked ridiculously bad last year defensively. At least early on in camp, can't get a full evaluation. But how would you say, how this coaching staff has done to this point?
I think they've done well. Looking at even going to special teams, I think Coach Hightower has done a really good job. He's done a really good job of, I'm looking at the special teams period and the way he's preparing guys, the drills they're doing individually before that period comes together. Like today was kickoff return. He's worked with the frontline guys in terms of the guys getting their depth and getting their drop and make sure they're on the right person. And then he splits that up on the back end, the returner and the off returner. They're back there communicating, giving you, me calls, something that's necessary throughout the season. He's real attentive to detail. You saw today at the end of the 2-minute drill, they have what you call a Mayday field goal where you don't have any timeouts. You run a play. You got to rush the field goal team on the field to get that field goal off before the clock expires. So I'm glad that he's putting an emphasis, and I'm glad he's putting a lot of pressure on that special teams unit early, because those are things, like I said before, those are situations that's going to come up throughout the season. I like the fact, like I've been saying it over and over again, Getsy, right? Second year in the system for a lot of these guys. So now we can add to this offense. We can layer our plays. So our base runs are our base runs. We're going to be an outside zone team. We're going to run outside zone, but how are we going to layer it? Okay, now we're going to give you the look of it being outside zone. We're going to throw a boot on it. We're going to give you the look of it being outside zone. We're going to throw a reverse on it. You know what I mean? It looks like outside zone. Now we're going to come back and throw a screen off of the same look. So to the defense, it looks like outside zone, but we're layering it. Now we have a screen. Now we have a boot. Now we have a reverse off the same look. And defensively, it's good that our defense is seeing these things, right? They're seeing our offense shift. They're seeing our offense bring in different personnel groupings, shifts in motion. So we're trying to give the defense the illusion of complexity, but for our defense, right, you got to stick to your keys. You got to stick to your principles to know that, hey, you know what? They're doing all these things to window dress it, but it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So guys have to play to their rules. Guys got to continue to play fast, and I like that the defense as a whole, from what we've seen today, they played as one cohesive unit. And that's a beautiful thing to see this early on in training camp.
And you, even with how Justin talked about it, right? He talked about what you just said, how they were disguising and covering things.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's the one thing that I think is going to be most important to Justin Fields heading into the season. I love that we're seeing it now, because I think early on in the season, people are going to test, can Justin Fields really throw in game? We've seen him put the ball up there, but can he go out there and be the guy that's going to consistently make that big play? So I think you're going to see a lot of single high, probably first two weeks of the season. I don't know if it'll get to 3. If he kill you 2 weeks in the season, usually by week 3, somebody gonna make an adjustment. But then it's not gonna be, oh, we're just done playing single high. It's gonna be, we're gonna disguise this now. We're gonna make things hard on you. We're gonna make you have to try and figure out kind of, okay, is he going to put this ball out there, make a mistake? And we saw the mistake made today. All of a sudden, Kyler Gordon comes out of nowhere. Boom! He's got it was probably the worst throw we've seen Justin make.
Threw it late and tried to force it, and it's real late. And you got a guy like Kyler Gordon that's playing at a you can tell he's comfortable in his defense.
Yeah.
You can tell he understands his defense.
And he's back in a position that he's comfortable.
Right, he's comfortable. Yeah. So he's right at home, and he's making plays like he's right at home. Yeah. So you got a guy who's locked in right now. You throw that ball late, it's picked off. Easy play for Kyler Gordon.
Let me ask you this, though. Does it feel like, and this is the one thing that I want to take from camp, because to me it feels like, and I wanted to ask Justin this, but you was laughing at us trying to ask a question in the press conference. Because nobody says a word.
Justin.
Nobody says a word. You just go.
You gotta be quick. You look around. Justin. This was you right here. Pat was like, Justin. He was like, and Pat looked at me. I was like, got him.
But the one thing I do want to know from him is he making a focused effort to stay in the pocket? Because there's a lot of times where I see plays happening where, again, we said it today, sack. In the regular season, he's gone to me, right? Like it feels like he's like, no, we got to sit in here. We got to get these receivers work. Everybody knows I can run. And so there's times where we're looking at the defensive line is getting through. The defensive line is, but I also have watched Justin Fields in a regular season game look like Nick Bosa was about to murder him, and then he turned it into a 15-yard run. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good question. That is a really good question, because like you said, you see there's been times to where he's holding that ball. Yeah. He's holding that ball. he's patting that ball. And if you pat that ball twice, it's more than likely a sack in this league. And at times, you see he's going to pat that ball once, look downfield, and see what he likes. He's taking off.
Yeah.
So, I don't honestly.
And you don't want that every play either. That's
right. And the thing is, too, you don't, with all the hoopla about Justin, can he take the next level as a passer? You don't want to take his natural ability away of being a playmaker.
Yeah.
And, I hope that's not what he's doing. I hope he's saying, I'm not going to run today. I'm going to try to sit in the pocket. The great passers, they know how to manipulate the pocket. They know how to move the pocket.
No matter what, anyway.
Right. They're blowing it dead.
Justin has gotten down and ran.
Yeah.
And the second he get ahead of the line, they're like, kill it.
You got to.
Which is 30. Why didn't you do that for PJ? PJ got out. PJ ran like 15 yards. I was like, blow the play dead.
What color are the quarterback jerseys at practice? What color are the quarterback jerseys at practice?
Man, they got the orange joints.
Right. That's for a reason. They're blowing it. You don't stay off the quarterback. Now, word of advice for my young defensive linemen, my defensive players, when you get around that quarterback, stay off the quarterback. That's the quickest way of getting off the team. You bump into that quarterback, it's a wrap. I've seen it happen. Goodbye. But I honestly, like to your point, that's a good question. I'm not in the huddle, so I don't know what they're saying. Hey, Justin, let's sit in the pocket today. I know that's not what Gessy's saying. Hey, Justin, let's hold the ball. You know what I mean? But like rhythm and timing is everything, right? So if it's a 3-step drop or we're working on quick game today, then that ball has got to be quick. It's got to be out. Now, if you're working on more drop back stuff where the routes are deeper and it takes more time to develop, that's when he's going to really manipulate the pocket. You know what I mean? So if we got a guy that's running a deep post, well, then I know, hey, if I'm getting him outside pressure and I see Braxton Jones getting bull rush, I've got to step up into the pocket because I know that post is at 10 or 15 yards. So I've got to get that post more time to develop. So I may have to step up in the pocket, keep my eyes downfield, and deliver that ball on time. You know what I'm saying? So, I just hope he's working within the framework of the offense, the timing and the rhythm, which is everything. But at the same time, at the end of the day, you're a playmaker. And all the great quarterbacks in this league, they're playmakers now. Before we saw quarterbacks, they were game managers, manage the game. Hey, get a couple first downs here. No, the elite quarterbacks in this league and nowadays are playmakers. Yeah. And Justin is a playmaker. So I don't want them to do anything to where they're going to handcuff his playmaking ability.
And that's the thing, right? I always think about Michael Vick did an interview with Shannon Sharp on Club Shay Shay, really good interview. Mm-hmm. And he talked about how that got in his head. It got in his head that people said he couldn't throw the football, 100%. That he couldn't go out there and be a passer. And so he went out in certain seasons trying to prove that he could throw the football, prove that he was a passer. And of course, right, when he wanted to pass, he could pass. Yeah. But it's like, hey, Mike, like you ain't got, DJ Moore standing out there. You know what I mean? Like you're trying to prove all of these people around, trying to prove all these reporters right.
Yeah.
And you taking too much time in the pocket trying to, so I really wonder that because there's a lot of times where, and there's probably a lot of times we said sack today where he'd have got away. But there's a lot of times where to me, you see the defensive line kind of leaking through, or even like I love the coaches doing a great job. Alan Williams has Kyler Gordon blitzing. And we saw Jaquan Brisker blitzing today, right? Yeah. Like, so they're not shying off of that either. I really want to know if, right, like, because Justin saw him and just like stepped up and was like, okay, I'm gonna throw the ball. Mm-hmm. But we both were like, you probably get sacked in that situation. So it'll be really interesting to see how that correlates to the field. Because of course I think we've probably seen him take off maybe 3 times.
Yeah, not as much.
Camp, not at all, really.
Yeah, not as much.
So we'll see what that all turns into, man. What's your biggest takeaway from today? We're getting to the point now where even the media side of things, even the reporters are coming out and they're just like, okay, we saw the same thing we saw yesterday.
Yeah.
Which isn't bad, by the way. Like, I need y'all to that's good. That means things are the same.
I'm excited about what I saw today. And I'm an offensive guy, but I'm excited the fact that, one, to me, it was a true training camp practice.
Yeah.
In terms of length, in terms of intensity. Guys were flying around. Guys were hitting. Guys were getting in altercations, safe altercations, but the competitive energy was flowing. Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Y'all used to throw helmets at people. You know what I mean? That was a little different.
Hey, man, sometimes you got to throw a helmet or two. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, and you talk about, Getsy talked about it as post-practice press conference. He talked about what? We're a physical team. We don't play two-hand touch. So I love that. I like seeing the physicality today, right? Because how can you be a physical team, right? How can you say our identity is we're a physical football team, but you don't practice that way?
Yeah.
that's all for nothing.
And what I love,
You know what I'm saying?
They're not punishing guys for it. Like, okay, if it gets too far, you know, that's gonna be a different situation. But like Bayless and Jaquan end up getting into it. The whole defense comes over, there's pushing and shoving. Guess what? Very next play, Bayless is out there lined up out wide. Jaquan's out there standing back. You know what I mean? Like, well, you go back out there and now go make a play.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, you have a true football coach that understands. Altercations are going to happen because we're both playing at high level. Lovey used to say, right? Lovey say, you know what? If you're going to get in the fight him like you're fighting your brother, big guy. Like, you're like, you're not going to turn your back. You know what I mean? I'm not going to hit you in the back. You go walk back to her. I'm not going to, push you in the back. No, you fight him like you fight your brother. Like we run into each other.
You know what I mean?
But that, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, if we're getting an altercation, fight him like you fight your brother.
Yeah.
Which means, hey, we may fight, but we're still brothers.
Yeah.
We're gonna shake hands. Good play. Hey, I thought you did this. Hey, man. Well, why'd you stand over me when you knocked me on the ground? We're gonna fight, but we're brothers. And at the end of the day, we're here to make each other better, because at the end of the day, it's not an offense, it's not a defense, it's not a special teams. We're one team. And for us to have a chance to win each and every Sunday, or give us a chance to win each and every Sunday, all three of those phases, we got to be clicking at this. We all got to be on the same page. In those three phases, got to be clicking in order for us to have an opportunity to win a game.
And when you fight your brother, you accidentally hit him in the mouth and be like, shh, don't tell mama. I give you whatever you want.
Everything's filmed.
I give you whatever you want.
They see it. But you make up. Hey, we're in the locker room. We may fight out there in the locker room. You know what I mean? We're hanging out. Now we're going to lunch together. You know what I'm saying?
Fight
him like you fight your brother.
Miami Heat. Y'all was on it. Jimmy Butler definitely fought Spo in that locker room, or at least Udonis has. We don't know yet. Hey, man, that's another edition of the Chicago Bears podcast. We've got you guys covered. I think that's pretty much it for us out here at camp this week. Mm-hmm. First off, Bears are off tomorrow, so no camp tomorrow. And then Friday, we'll be in the studio with Yurko, but McKie will always be here giving us the inside scoop. This is the sideline reporter.
Give you that
Relax there, brother. Relax there, brother. Relax.
Inside joke.
Follow us on everything, man. We appreciate you guys for showing love. As always, for Jason McKie, I'm Pat, the designer of Chicago Bears podcast. Bear down.
Bear down.